What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, joined by my guy Morgan here. And Morgan, we are on the eve of Lions kicking off OTAs, which officially kicks off tomorrow. We are actually recording this the night before. And again, we've already been somewhat into the offseason program with the Lions and much of the NFL, right? So vets have been at the facilities for the last couple weeks for voluntary workouts and things like that. I believe it was 2 weeks ago or about where, they had rookie mini camp for a weekend or so. So the rookies got to be on the field for a little bit. But OTAs is something different, Morgan. Again, these are still voluntary. So players are not required to be there. If guys want to choose to still work out on their own, they can do that. Some players or some teams will have players not show up because maybe they're holding out for longer contracts or for more guaranteed money, things of that nature. So it's not really a big deal if players aren't there. But again, this is like one of the first types of workouts where the entire team can kind of come together, right?
Yeah, and just got to take it for what it is, right? Like you said, it's there's no contact, so it's very much a skill player oriented like activity, right? Like O line and D line in the trenches, you get reps with contact. You have to have it. Just everything is that's all inherent there, but you can really get some good work in your secondary, your skill players, your tight ends, your receivers, your backs, obviously quarterbacks. So definitely important for the young guys. They're going to be swimming in it. Like the rookies, you're acclimating to a different speed and caliber of football while also trying to digest a brand new scheme that's likely way more complicated than the one you ran in college. So expect the rookies to be swimming in it. But yeah, it's all mandated by the CBA, and important to remember it is voluntary. So at the end of the day.
Yeah, and so over the next couple weeks or so, we're going to be getting more into OTAs and again, more into these off-season workouts. So with that being said, we wanted to do this video to kind of highlight the most important things to kind of focus on over these next couple days, because like I said, there's going to be a lot of reports coming out. You're going to see stuff on Twitter or Instagram about this player looked good or how this, and I don't want to say that none of that is important, but Morgan, we are still early in the process. So it's important, I think, to help fans know what to focus on and what to kind of, again, not necessarily ignore, but maybe temper the importance of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And for some, OTAs is different things for different players, depending on where you're at in your career and where you stand with your team, right? Like, so yeah, for the vets, like, Goff, St. Brown, Laporta at this point, like, the guys that they work with all the time, that's just, they're sharpening the swords a little more. They're already pretty sharp, but they're just them. It's just like, it's more work, right? More stuff. They do this by themselves in California, to an extent, like all together. So it's kind of more work for them. But for the rookies and for the coaches, like your position coaches and things of that nature, the coaches would tell you this is a teaching environment, right? So yeah, this is where you're going to see the guy like the rookies like Terrion and Rakestraw and definitely Manu and so on and so forth. They're going to be learning a lot quickly, and you get it from your veterans who we're going to talk attendance in a second. Like your Manu, definitely he's going to want to listen to what Kevin Zeitler and Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, even though he's only 23, which is crazy, have to say, because it's that helps him learn at hopefully a faster rate. So. But at the same time, Hank Fraley, Kelvin Shepard, some of the Lions position coaches that have been doing a really good job these last 3 years. It's an important time for them, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think like that's kind of like I said, what the purpose of this video is. So let's start with the very first thing that you kind of already hinted to, which is attendance. And like I said earlier, like attendance is a tough thing to gauge, but I think it's important, Morgan, for the Lions, because under Dan Campbell, they've had great attendance for these off-season workout programs. And I think that type of buy-in has really translated and carried them through, to their regular season performances, especially the last 2 seasons where the Lions have had, winning records and obviously winning the division and winning 2 playoff games last year. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what that attendance looks like this year. One, because of the culture that, Dan and his coaching staff has set, but also could be on the flip side where the season did run a little bit longer for this Lions crew than it probably has in past seasons.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like if a vet, takes some time off, or they have something they're doing with their family, or it really just doesn't matter. Like they're at the end of the day, yes, they're professional athletes, but they're also people. So depending on where you're at in your career, you can definitely miss OTAs, and no one's gonna talk to you twice about it. But in other instances, you do need to. It's kind of like you're being voluntold. Like you better be there, because if you want to make this roster or have a chance at making this final roster come August, then this definitely factors into the equation, whether that's written into the CBA or not. But yeah, at any rate, it's interesting, because I do think the Lions attendance will be high, but there could be a few players that, even not counting injury, they just might want to stay where they're at and continue with their training, like their off-season training and where they're living. So we'll see.
Yeah, because that's another thing that you will see at times, right? Is that maybe guys aren't there for the first couple days of OTAs, or maybe that first week of OTAs, but then they're there that second week because of what you said, Morgan, at the beginning. Like, they're still people. They have families. They want to take their family vacations. They've promised their wives and their children, or just their extended family, like, time. And I think that's the cool thing. One of the cool things that come out of the CBA, right? That this point of the season is not mandatory. So there is a little bit of flexibility, but I agree with you. I do think the Lions will continue to have high attendance, because I think it's something that, again, Dan and his coaching staff have kind of built in, of like, hey, this is where we start building the foundation, guys. It doesn't start when training camp starts. It actually starts in these off-season workouts, where we start to build the chemistry. And again, even just getting familiar with the playbook and new things that are going to be implemented this upcoming season.
Yeah, it exactly ties into more of what we talked about with like the teaching culture and like the learning culture. So it's exciting, because it should be a really good learning opportunity for the rookies and some of these young players, like even the guys going into their second and third years. Like, it's still critical, development time for them too. So 100%, Meko.
And so attendance is something that I think fans should definitely keep an eye on. In that, almost like going hand in hand with attendance is something else that you mentioned, which is injuries. There may be some guys who don't attend OTAs these next couple of weeks because they're still recovering from injuries. But at the same time, OTAs also gives us a chance to get an update on some guys that maybe ended the season injured, or in the case of someone like Brian Branch, who was spotted during, the draft festivities in a boot. It's a good opportunity to get an update on how he's progressing through any surgery that he may have had, once the season ended.
Yeah, and that you're 100% right. And for Brian Branch, he was seen in a walking boot. I want to say, and this is just speculation, I probably got something cleaned up, that he was dealing with during the season that he didn't want to have messed with. It sounds barbaric to an extent, but a lot of guys will do that. They'll just put it off, and then they'll take care of it at the end of the season. But we'll know for sure here. Well, we may know for sure here in a couple days, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, didn't he? I may be misremembering here. I thought he had like some ankle issues in that Packers game that like caused him to miss a couple games, but he tried to play through and eventually like came back. I think only missing like a game or two. So that you might be spot on with something like that. But like you said, that's another good thing about OTAs. And again, the media will, one of these days, I think during the week, they'll be out there to get, to meet with the players and ask questions. So we'll get a few more answers to, again, probably what's going on with Brian Branch or anybody else that's dealing with any kind of ailment, post the season ending.
Yeah, exactly. And another one is Taylor Decker. Okay, so he talked about it. He had some pretty crazy stuff done. I can't remember the specifics of it, but some of it was pretty rough sounding. So I'm glad he got that cleaned up. So I imagine he'll be out. Well, he might be here. That's the thing. So Taylor Decker, if you didn't know, lives in the off season in Arizona. So, and I know, his wife and their baby, he might be here. He might not be. He might just want to spend some time recovering, because I'm not sure where he's at with his recovery. But yeah, that's one. And then Emmanuel Mosley, I would assume he's going to be in attendance, but I don't think he'll be up to speed yet, still recovering from the other ACL. Although I do think he'll be again, speculation. I haven't heard this from anything, but I do think he'll be closer to ready around like when training camp opens up, like late July, early August. That'd be really nice just for the competition in that room. And then beyond that, watching Frank Ragnow, if he's here and working, that'll be an interesting one because we know Frank has a lot going on with his foot and his body, but he's a warrior and he plays through it, and he plays at a really high level, second team All-Pro. He's just one of the best in the game.
I was gonna say probably, like, again, going into the season as probably the best center when healthy. So yeah, Frank is another one I think that, again, fans should kind of keep an eye out for to see, again, if he's in attendance, and if not, again, this may be something, again, mandated by the team where they tell Frank, like, hey, just take some extra time, because once we actually get to the mandatory parts, that's when we're going to need you. That's when we want you to start really ramping up. But again, that's specifically looking at injuries and getting updates on injuries. That is something that fans should definitely be plugged into. Again, when reading reports and getting any type of insight into what is occurring at OTAs, always keeping an eye on injuries, whether, again, updates, or, again, at the very worst, which we don't want to see during this process, is any new injuries popping up. That is something you absolutely don't want to see this early in the season.
Yeah, none of that. I got us, though. Knocked on wood. Flying Hawaiian, I got you in the comments, man. I read that comment the other day. That was funny. Appreciate that.
Okay, Morgan, third thing that I think fans should definitely keep an eye on when OTAs kick off tomorrow is, again, how these vets and rookies start to mix, right? This is the first time they get to be on the field together. This is the first time the vets get to kind of start that mentorship process with some of these rookies, or maybe they've already started, but at least on the field, this is where the groundwork starts getting laid, kind of like how you were saying before, learning the playbook, learning how to be a pro, learning the different, tricks of the trade. If you're Terrion Arnold, trying to learn from Carlton Davis, like, all of this stuff starts tomorrow when these young players and these veteran players get together and officially start putting in work together.
Yeah, this is where it's going to be kind of fun, right? Because, like you said, you get that, Meko, you get the mentorship aspect of it, like Carlton Davis, like talking to, and Amik Robertson too, talking to the likes of Terrion Arnold and Enish Rakestraw Jr. Like, that's invaluable on top of the tutelage they get from AG and the rest of the defensive coaching staff, right?
Yeah.
But you also get, which I always love seeing this, you get to see, like, in a one-on-one, if they do some live one-on-ones at all, which I don't know if is allowed in the CBA. I'd have to go look.
Yeah, I don't think you can do one-on-ones, but you can do 11-on-11s.
So yeah, like right there, like, right, you get a one-on-one, like St. Brown versus Terrion Arnold, or St. Brown or JMO versus Rakestraw. Like, right, you about to see some speed, man. Like, I know both of them dudes came from the SEC, but the bar does get kicked up quite a bit when you get to the NFL, and especially like a really good team like the Lions. And for those wondering, we will, like, I want more clarification because the CBA, I can't remember, but with Meko, I do believe they allow, there's 7-on-7 periods and 11-on-11 periods. So we'll get to see some of that, hopefully, or at least hear about it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like you said, whether it's, the defensive players working with, some of these defensive vets, or like how you mentioned earlier, right? Manu getting to work with some of these offensive linemen and Hank Fraley, like, again, you get this hands-on tutelage, and again, they've had their rookie mini camp, but now, like, again, when they're swapping between first team, second teams, you get to pick the brain of a Penei Sewell and things of that nature, which, again, is something that may not get highlighted in every practice breakdown, but it is something to keep an eye out for. Like, okay, who's gravitating to who, and who is taking this player under their wing, and not even necessarily just the drafted players, but some of the UDFAs, right? Like, who's finding their fit with their group, and maybe looking a little bit ahead of the curve versus where they were expected to be.
Yeah, I love that point, Meko, because it really, like, yes, OTAs is, non-contact, and at the end of the day, it's like it's a teaching environment. But also, if a UDFA or someone like, say, Colby looks really good in OTAs, like, that can definitely put him a leg up, once he starts training camp, right? Like, if you can parlay a good showing and good improvement in OTAs in your technique and the way you're just performing on a day-to-day basis into training camp. And that's when it matters, right? When it really matters, I should say.
Yeah. And I think that's a good transition into like our last point, which is, again, this is something that I think is important, but it's important to weigh it properly, which is what the lineups look like when they start going out into those 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s, right? Like who gets the first crack, with quote unquote first team and second team and third team. I say it's important because it's interesting to see like who do the Lions see as rising to the top and who are they trying to challenge. But at the same time, Morgan, like you just said, good showings during these types of weeks could allow for things to change drastically once training camp starts. And you start to see, somebody that was originally repping with the second team, all of a sudden starting to get more first team reps, maybe at a position you didn't necessarily expect them to, right?
Yeah, because it's another, like they're always, that's the thing too with coaches, because with the new CBA, and when we say CBA, guys, sorry, I guess we should explain some of these acronyms. Collective Bargaining Agreement. Okay, so it's basically the contract that's negotiated upon between the owners, like Roger Goodell, and then the Players Association, the NFL Players Association. So when you see across ESPN or NFL Network, I'm not sure when it gets done again, but that's what they're talking about. But in the CBA, everything is mandated and regulated. So like the days of two-a-days, like some of y'all young people watching this, you probably don't even know what two-a-days are. But you had to practice in the morning. That was about 3 or 4 hours. And then you had a break. And then you had practice in the afternoon/evening for 3 or 4 hours. And that was every day for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It was terrible. But yeah, none of that anymore, which I think is a good thing. Let's work smarter, not harder. But yeah, it does matter. Like they're always evaluating, and that's where I was getting to my point there, my long-winded point. But they're always evaluating, and they're always going to be, like, oh, so-and-so's looking really sharp, and then so-and-so looks like they're maybe not really even in shape right now. So there's always things to glean from performances.
Yeah, 100%. I think even just looking last year, right? During this time in OTAs last year, Brian Branch, like, again, went from like, hey, maybe he's going to just, be a backup nickel to by the time training camp starts, they're like, no, we got to give him more first team reps. The same with Jack Campbell. I think he was primarily repping with the twos during OTAs, but then training camp starts and all of a sudden they start sprinkling him in a little bit more with the ones. So that, again, this time is valuable. I think there's some really good insight and information that fans can take from these practices. But I think this specific thing, again, who is starting, if like you kind of mentioned, I think maybe you've mentioned this off camera, but like there's a strong possibility that like when the defense goes out there for 11-on-11s or 7-on-7s, that Terrion Arnold isn't one of the first corners out there, that it might be Carlton Davis III and Amik Robertson, just because they want to take things slowly with Terrion. But that doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way. So again, it's something to watch for, and mainly to make mental notes of, to see, okay, how drastically do things change once mandatory training camp starts or mandatory OTA start, and then once training camp officially kicks off in like August, I believe.
Yep, late July. It just depends on when teams report. It varies a little bit team to team, but late July, early August. And yeah, that's a great point, Meko. Lions, this regime is really about making rookies earn it. They're always going to give the first crack to the veterans, to your point. So you can almost write that in pen. Like for the quote unquote first team here in May, it's most likely going to be Carlton Davis III and Amik Robertson out outside. And then Rick Straw and Terrion will be your twos for the time being. But it's just the way this regime has operated. Very rarely, like I want to say only Penei Sewell and Aiden Hutchinson so far were the only draft picks that were instantly picked and then inserted into the starting lineup.
Yeah.
But other than that, like everyone's had to earn it. So definitely don't freak out. It's nothing that's just how this team operates. And it's very much like a lot of them are former players. This is the way my brain works. And former players like coaches that make rookies earn it. Like don't just hand it to these guys coming in like, oh yeah, here you go, number 24 overall pick, here's the starting position, we'll just keep, make them earn it. And that's very much the player in them, and Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn and all these guys, right? Like earn it. They're going to make you earn it.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to make camp fun this year, right? Is that the competition is going to be that much more intense. It was pretty intense last year, and I think it's going to be even more intense at some very key positions this year. And we're just getting started. So these are the 4 things that we think you guys should kind of be, mindful of as OTAs kind of get kicked started tomorrow or today when you're watching this video. Like always, be sure to check in with us in the comment section. Let us know if there's anything that you have specific questions about once OTAs kick off. We'll be trying to monitor the comment section. Also, hopefully dropping a few more videos throughout the week of giving any kind of update if there's anything that's newsworthy coming out of OTAs to kind of keep you guys aware of those things as well. But like always, if there's not a new video up, you can always go check out pridedetroit.com because there are new articles being written literally every day, multiple articles a day being posted on the website. So please be sure to go over there and show your support to all the guys that are continuing to pump out written content over there as well. And at the same time, if you have never subscribed to this YouTube channel, if you've never bothered to hit that notification bell, do that today. Both of those things help out this YouTube channel immensely and make sure that more of our videos are seen by you guys, the fans. And again, keeps you guys even more plugged in with things that are related to the Detroit Lions. So with all that said, I'm Meko. He's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch. And we'll be sure to catch you guys in the next one.